We'll move on to the next talk. Vivek himself is presenting the talk on subfoveal abscess dugout.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvanan. I hope I am audible, visible, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I'll start off with the case. This was a 35-year-old male. He was a case of having diabetes mellitus uncontrolled and a background chronic renal failure, and was undergoing regular dialysis. The right eye was lost to an old retinal detachment many years ago, and this is what he presented with in the left eye, vision of 20 by 400, near vision less than N36, and the history was since the last 10 days, slow gradual loss of vision noted. So in general, if we see the fundus was clear, there were a few sort of lesions over the posterior pole indicative of few cotton wool spots which were resolving. The area of interest right at the posterior pole, that is under the fovea, we saw that there was a hemorrhagic retinitis, and the lesion was elevated. Rest of the vitreous cavity otherwise was clear. When we did an OCT through the lesion, again we see that the posterior vitreous cavity is not really showing any cellular reaction. It's largely quiet. The retina showed a little bit of edema, but below the retina, in between the photoreceptor layer and the retinal pigment epithelium, we see this reflective aggregation of a lesion which was sitting right below the fovea. So given the background of his systemic conditions, given the look and nature of the lesion, we suspected this to be infective, and this patient was taken up for a biopsy to establish the diagnosis. This is what the patient looked like. As we started off, in order to gather sample from right close to the lesion, I did a sort of a dry vitrectomy, collecting sample right from close to the lesion. And once the vitreous sample was collected and the rest of the vitrectomy was completed, we concentrated then on the macular lesion per se, and material was then aspirated using a 41 gauge needle from within the lesion. If you look at the bore of the needle carefully, you will slowly see whitish material rising up the bore. This was then collected, and immediately a part of it, yeah, here you can see it's rising along the bore, was immediately plated onto an agar plate, and the rest was also sent to microbiology for microbiologic evaluation. So we found nothing grew from the vitreous sample, but the subretinal aspirate grew Candida albicans in the laboratory. This patient was over the period of next couple of weeks given 3 repeat injections of intravitreal amphotericin B. This is what he ended up with 1 month down the line. The macular lesion had largely regressed, vision had come up to 20, 80, and N18. And this is what his fovea looked like at the final visit. So thank you for the attention. I would like to ask the panel, especially I think I would put it to Avinash. Avinash, how would you deal with such cases? Do you also go for an aspirate, or do you treat empirically or pick up sample from the vitreous cavity?
No, thanks, Vivek. The excellent outcome of the case. And the diagnosis was straightforward in terms of endogenous endophthalmitis, which had in this patient. So then find out what could be the possible organism which would have caused endogenous endophthalmitis. Now, the key factor, there are a couple of factors in this to make a clinical diagnosis of what the organisms could be, because the history was 10 days, the vitreous was so clear, and the lesion was predominantly in the subretinal space and little bit of retinal hemorrhage which was there. So this is a condition which is commonly seen in Candida type of endophthalmitis. Now, if you look into endogenous, you have the filamentous fungi, Aspergillus, and then you have the Candida. These are the 2 most commonest cause of endogenous endophthalmitis in fungal organisms. But Aspergillus, in 2 or 3 days, it spreads, and it spreads not only horizontally, it spreads into the vitreous with a lot of inflammation. So in the absence of inflammation in the vitreous and predominantly localized in the submacular space, I would think Candida is the first in the differential diagnosis. So the answer to the second question, whether I would have done something differently, I would not have gone into the submacular space like what you would have done. I would have done the first part of it, going over the vitreous, going over the lesion and try to get, and then treat as per the empirical diagnosis what I have made on the clinical observations. Systemic antifungals is one indication. It's a exact subretinal location is one of the indications where you can still try a systemic antifungal and can get away as well.
So Avinash, given the OCT, what intrigued me or what made me go into the subretinal space is the OCT was pretty quiet right there in the posterior area. So that is where I felt the necessity to go inside the lesion per se. So you would still possibly take a vitreous biopsy in the first go, right?
Yeah,
Right.
subretinal intervention would be the second in my list to go for, not in the primary thing. So because Candida, most of the Candida responds very well, and we also have to understand the duration of the treatment for Candida. Unlike bacteria, it takes nearly about 4 to 6 weeks, and it is not one-time treatment.
Dr. Shanmugam, you want to come in with a point?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could have considered a therapeutic challenge of injecting an intravitreal antifungal. I would ask Avinash this: is it so toxic an intravitreal injection of voriconazole or amphotericin is going to cause damage to the eye? We could have tried an intravitreal, a therapeutic challenge of an antifungal. Beautifully done surgery, Dr. Vivek. Anyway.
Thank you.
Your question was about the inflammation induced with
amphotericin. Could we instead of doing the surgery, could we have considered a therapeutic challenge? So just giving an empirically giving an intravitreal antifungal, one injection. Yeah. So, are we causing any harm to the eye?
No, I don't think so. We are causing any harm because though we inject amphotericin inside the eye, and when we are removing the vitreous from over the area where the actual site of infection is, I don't think so. Though amphotericin can cause inflammation, it is known to cause inflammation. That's one point. And we also have to understand that in an eye which has not undergone extensive vitrectomy, the half-life of amphotericin is nearly about 5 to 7 days. So, of 5 microgram which you inject. And the third point is voriconazole has an extremely short half-life, about just 6 hours. So, these 3 points we have to understand when we have to manage with intravitreal antifungals. But even systemic fluconazole is good enough for management of these cases. We don't have to go up to voriconazole. They respond well even to fluconazole. And needless to say, just one point to find out the possible systemic source.
Avinash, what is the reason for all these infections localizing in the subfoveal space rather than in the periphery or the mid-periphery? Is there any logic in that?
It depends on the size of the organisms surrounded, because these Candida are very small. They tend to localize in the subfoveal area than in the peripheral area where the vessels are larger, and because of the dense vasculature in the subfoveal area, the finer caliber of these vessels, they tend to localize more in the subfoveal area.
I had one question to Avinash sir. Sir, in case of intravitreal injection and vitrectomy, as you said, is voriconazole is 6 to 7 hours. Then how will you assess the treatment to the cause? Like how frequently you give the injection in these cases, or how would you observe that whether it is responding to that drug and then decide for the next schedule?
Now, one thing you have to see is, Srinivas, when you're looking at fungus, don't try to expect what is the type of response you're looking at to say that it is responding. So the size of the abscess should shrink, or the height on the OCT also you can see. Clinically, you can see well rounding of the margins, and on the abscess height will be decreased on the OCT. Those are the 2 parameters by which you can consider. Now when we have to repeat these antifungals, so if you just have to repeat antifungals, just like fluoroquinolones, voriconazole must have to be done every 24 to 48 hours if that is the primary modality of treatment which you consider for the as intravitreal as a monotherapy. But if you consider amphotericin, since we are injecting 5 microgram inside, what I do follow in my practice is after 3 days, I reduce it to 2.5 microgram and keep injecting to maintain that concentration in the eye.
Ravnesh, what are the indications?
Extreme apologies, sir, but can I request you to please take this questions in the chat box so that we can move on to the next presenter, because we have 2 presentations more till 9:30.
Okay then. Okay then. So just
So
wanted to ask the
sorry.
last question to Avinash, like what are the situations where you use injectables or oral voriconazole?
No, both we can use. So we have the primary modality, and then the systemic is always an adjuvant treatment which could be considered. But if we go back into the history and see the initial papers which came out from Harry Flynn, the subretinal location of the lesion, which does not transgress through the retina or into the vitreous, is one of these indications where we can get away even without an intravitreal injection and just try a primary systemic treatment in such kind of endogenous endophthalmitis.